My wife cheated on me, and it turned out she's been siphoning off $200, $0 from our joint account to fund her secret life. Now she's claiming ownership of our house and threatening legal action. I feel completely betrayed and lost. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, it feels like some twisted soap opera. Everything seemed fine, normal, even, until I started noticing little things that didn't add up. At first, it was just her phone ringing at odd hours, and she'd quickly hide it or change the subject when I asked who she was talking to. She'd get defensive if I pressed her about her whereabouts, and I thought maybe she was just stressed or had a new friend she didn't want to share. But then came the signs that something was seriously wrong. It all started a few months ago when I noticed her spending a lot more money than usual. Not just on shopping, though she loves to buy designer clothes and jewelry, but on trips, fancy dinners, and she even bought a new car behind my back. I was suspicious, but she always brushed it off, calling me paranoid or saying I was overreacting. She'd say, "It's just a little shopping, relax," or "You're imagining things." But I could feel the tension building and I knew something was off. Then there was her sudden change in attitude. She became more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me over small things. She'd roll her eyes when I tried to talk about our future like I was bothering her. I caught her in a lie once when she said she was working late, but I saw her sneaking out of a hotel with a guy I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. I followed her the next day just to see where she was going. Turns out she was meeting this guy, some guy from her gym. They'd been seeing each other for months, I found out later. That's when I started digging. I didn't want to believe it, but after that, I had to find out for sure. I got access to the bank statements. She'd been siphoning off about $200, $0 from our joint account over the last year. That's a lot of money, enough to buy a house or start some big business. And she used it to fund her secret life with. Fancy hotels, weekends away, clothes, gifts. I was furious. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. She lied about everything and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. One day I decided to confront her. I had all the evidence laid out, bank statements, hotel receipts, messages. I waited until she got home from work, heart pounding. When she saw the look on my face, she started to spin her usual lies. "You're overreacting," she said, brushing her hair back. "You don't understand, it's just sex, it doesn't mean anything, I still love you." But her eyes told a different story. I could see the guilt, the fear. She tried to deny everything, even claimed I was imagining it all, that I was paranoid and jealous. Her reactions only made me angrier. How could she lie so easily? How could she justify cheating and stealing from us? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and deeply hurt. All those years I thought we had something real. Turns out she was living a double life and I was just a fool. I remember standing there, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. My mind was racing. What do I do now? Do I fight for the marriage? Do I walk away? The emotional was just beginning and I knew things would never be the same again. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again. I kept replaying every moment, her lies, her sneers, the way she tried to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. The fact that she'd been siphoning off hundreds of thousands of dollars was a punch to the stomach I still hadn't fully processed. That money wasn't just numbers on a bank statement anymore. It represented trust, years of shared life, our house, our future. Everything I thought was secure. I started digging more into her financials, trying to piece together how much she'd taken and where it all went. That's when I discovered she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, buying properties under fake names, and even investing in some shady schemes. She'd been planning this for a long time, I realized. She'd carefully covered her tracks until I found the clues that broke through her lies. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done. The anger was building. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, then kicked when I was down. I was furious at her, but also at myself for not seeing it earlier. How did I miss all the signs? How did I not notice the way she was acting? The more I looked into her financial mess, the more I realized she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe years. She had a whole secret life, and I was just the fool who got played. I started planning my next move. I knew I couldn't confront her again without solid evidence, so I hired a private investigator. I needed to know exactly what she was up to, where the money was going, and how deep her deception went. The pie uncovered even more. She'd been meeting in different cities, staying in high-end hotels, and even buying expensive jewelry for herself. She'd been living a double life, and I was just starting to see how far she'd gone. Meanwhile, she kept throwing her usual lies. She'd call me crazy, say I was jealous, accuse me of snooping because I didn't trust her. She'd spin stories about how she was just exploring her options or how I was possessive and paranoid. It was gaslighting at its worst. Every time I tried to get her to face what she'd done, she'd turn it around, blame me, or cry and say she was the victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew the truth, and I knew I had to act on it. The more I found out, the more my emotions swung between fury and despair. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, physically. I'd given her everything, and she repaid me with lies, theft, and infidelity. I started questioning everything about our marriage, about who she really was. How could someone I loved so much do this to me? How could she look me in the eye and lie so blatantly? The betrayal was overwhelming, and I wondered if I'd ever get over it. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay silent. I had to decide my next move, and it had to be decisive. After gathering all the evidence, I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that I had to take control of the situation fast. I couldn't let her continue to lie and manipulate her way out of what she'd done. I was furious, but I also wanted to be smart about this. If she thought she could intimidate me or buy her way out of it, she was dead wrong. So I sat down one night and drafted a plan. My first move was to consult with a lawyer. I needed to understand my rights, especially since she was now claiming ownership of the house, which she insisted was hers because she'd contributed to the mortgage and renovations. I knew that wasn't true. Our house was in both our names, but her attitude was changing, and I could see her trying to push me out. She was already making legal threats, claiming I'd been controlling and that I was trying to ruin her life. That was her way of spinning it, gaslighting again. While I waited for legal advice, I started to confront her directly, not in a heated way, but with cold, calculated questions. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, her plans to leave. Her reaction was priceless. She snapped, called me crazy, and tried to deny everything, but her face was pale and her hands trembled. She tried to play the victim, crying about how I was controlling her and how she needed space. That was when I realized she was trying to set the stage for a legal fight. She wanted to claim the house, keep the money, and leave me with nothing. That's when I decided to take things into my own hands. I started documenting everything, her lies, her threats, her attempts to manipulate the situation. I also contacted the bank to freeze the account she'd been siphoning money from. I wanted to prevent her from draining any more funds. Meanwhile, I hired a financial advisor to help me trace the stolen money and see what could be recovered. I knew I had to protect what was left of our assets, especially the house, because she was already claiming it as hers. She got wind of my plans, and her attitude shifted from defensive to aggressive. She started demanding that I leave her alone, threatening legal action if I tried to ruin her reputation. She even accused me of harassment, which was laughable considering how much she'd lied and stolen. I was sick of her lies, her manipulations, and her refusal to face the truth. I knew I had to prepare for a serious legal battle, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was finally taking control of my life, and I wasn't going to let her steamroll me anymore. The house was the biggest sticking point. She kept claiming she contributed more than me, that she deserved ownership because she worked hard for it. I knew that wasn't true. Our names were both on the deed, and the mortgage was in both our names. But her lawyer was already spinning stories, trying to turn the tables. I had to be ready for every possible move she'd make. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she stole from me, especially not the house I'd built our life in. I was angry, but I also knew I had to be strategic. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about protecting my future and making her face the consequences of her actions. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal consultations, secret meetings, and sleepless nights. I felt like I was fighting a battle I wasn't fully prepared for, but I knew I couldn't back down. Every time I thought about her lying, stealing, and sneaking around with, my blood boiled. The betrayal cut so deep that I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. Still, I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this. I had to be the one in control now. One morning, I woke up to a threatening letter from her lawyer claiming that she owned the house outright because she'd contributed more financially, and that I was trying to undermine her rights. The letter also threatened legal action if I tried to stop her from accessing our joint accounts or from claiming ownership of certain assets. I read it and felt a surge of anger. My instinct was to lash out, but instead, I kept calm. I called my lawyer immediately, told him everything, and asked what my next steps should be. I knew I had to act fast before she could take any more of what was ours. While waiting for the legal advice, I started gathering more evidence, texts, emails, bank statements, anything that could prove her deception. I also reached out to a private investigator again, who confirmed that she was still in contact with and was planning to move out of town soon. I couldn't let her run away with the stolen money or the house. That's when I decided to take a more aggressive approach. I filed for a temporary restraining order, claiming that her actions were damaging and that she was attempting to transfer assets illegally. The court date came sooner than I expected. When she showed up, her face was full of disdain. She tried to act innocent, crying crocodile tears, insisting she was the victim of my paranoia, but the judge wasn't buying it. My lawyer presented all the evidence, her secret accounts, the stolen $200, $0, the hotel receipts, the messages with. It was enough to show she was trying to hide assets and move out without facing the consequences. The judge granted the restraining order, preventing her from accessing certain accounts and from transferring property or assets without court approval. That was a huge win, but I knew it was just the beginning. She was furious, of course, and immediately started spinning stories to friends and family about how I was trying to control her and ruin her life. She even claimed I was abusive, completely false, of course, but her words didn't matter anymore. I had the proof, and I was ready for a long legal fight. I also made arrangements to get a forensic accountant to evaluate the stolen money, and I started the process of legally separating from her. The house was still in dispute, but I was determined to fight for my rights. I wasn't going to let her just walk away with everything she'd stolen from us. In the midst of all this chaos, I felt a strange mixture of relief and hollow emptiness. Part of me still loved her, part of me still wanted to believe she'd change, but deep down I knew I had to protect myself first. I had lost trust, lost faith, and I was angry beyond words. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd face whatever came next, whether it was court battles, her accusations, or her trying to spin her lies even further. I had to hold on to the fact that I was doing this for myself, for what was left of the life I thought we shared. I couldn't let her steal that, not anymore. The legal fights dragged on for months, and in that time I learned a lot about betrayal, manipulation, and the ugly truth behind what I thought was our life. Every court appearance, every piece of evidence felt like another blow, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money anymore. I was fighting to reclaim myself from the chaos she had dragged me into. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone, lying, stealing, cheating, all while pretending to be the victim. It was like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Her lawyer kept pushing her narrative, claiming she contributed more financially, that she was entitled to half the assets, and that I was trying to control her. She even managed to get some of her friends to back her up, spinning stories about how I was abusive and controlling, lies she had concocted to turn the tables. But I had the evidence, and I made sure it was all documented. The forensic accountant uncovered that she'd stolen over $200, $0, money she'd used to fund her affair, her secret properties, and her lavish lifestyle. That was the real story, and I wasn't going to let her deny it. The court finally scheduled a hearing to determine the house's ownership. I was nervous but prepared. I brought all my documents, bank statements, emails, text messages, everything that proved her deception. She tried to play innocent, acting like she was the victim, crying about how I'd ruined her reputation, but I saw through her act. The judge listened carefully as I laid out the case, showing how she'd manipulated our joint funds, lied about her whereabouts, and used the money to fund her secret life. When she tried to claim she contributed more financially, I presented the evidence that showed she'd been siphoning money the entire time, money that technically belonged to both of us but was stolen and hidden. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The house was awarded to me, and she was ordered to pay back a significant portion of the stolen money. She looked furious, but she couldn't deny the evidence anymore. Her face twisted with rage, and she spat out some last-minute threats about taking me to court or ruining my reputation. But I knew I had done everything by the book. I'd protected what was mine, and I'd exposed her for the liar and thief she was. That victory didn't come without a cost. I felt drained, emotionally and physically. The betrayal had shattered what little trust I had left. I realized that I'd been a fool to believe in our marriage for so long, to overlook the red flags, to ignore the way she was slipping away from me. But with the court ruling behind me, I felt a strange sense of closure. The house was mine again, and I had reclaimed some sense of stability. Still, I knew this wasn't the end, just a chapter closing on a nightmare I never expected to live through. Now I'm left with a lot to process. I've learned that people can hide their true selves behind a mask for a long time, and that betrayal can come from the one you trust the most. I've also learned that sometimes justice is slow but worth fighting for. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm stronger now, more cautious, more aware. And I'll be damned if I let her or anyone else destroy what little I have left. I just hope others out there don't make the same mistake I did, trusting blindly and ignoring the signs. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Looking back, I realize I've been through hell and back, but I also see that I came out the other side a little wiser, though battered. The betrayal was brutal, no doubt about it. I lost not just money or a house, but a part of my trust in someone I loved. It's a painful lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. People can hide who they really are behind a pretty face or a false smile. My wife's lies, her manipulations, they opened my eyes to a harsh reality I wish I'd seen sooner. What struck me most is how much I underestimated her. She was bitchy, yes, and she lied so easily I sometimes wondered if she even knew what truth was anymore. She was always good at spinning stories, convincing herself she was the victim, even as she was secretly siphoning off money and cheating on me. The whole time I was blind to her true nature, thinking I knew my wife, my partner, but her actions proved otherwise. She was a master at deception until I finally decided to look closer. The legal battle was exhausting both emotionally and physically. I spent countless nights stressing, wondering if I'd ever be able to trust again or feel safe in my own home. But through it all, I learned some vital lessons. First, never ignore the red flags. Second, document everything, because if you don't, you're just trusting someone's word, and that's dangerous. And third, sometimes you have to fight hard for what's right, even if it means losing part of yourself in the process. I fought for my house, my money, my dignity, and I won, but at a cost. Now I'm trying to rebuild. I've moved out of the chaos, started therapy, and focused on myself. I don't expect to forget this pain overnight, but I do want to learn from it. I want to be smarter, more cautious, and more aware of the people around me. I also want to warn others, don't dismiss the signs. If something feels off, dig deeper. Trust your gut. Because once someone crosses the line, cheating, stealing, lying, it's almost impossible to go back. Most importantly, I've realized that life goes on. No matter how shattered you feel, you can piece yourself back together, stronger than before. It's not about revenge, though I certainly got some satisfaction seeing her face when she realized she'd lost everything she tried to steal. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. And if you're in a similar situation, don't be afraid to fight for yourself. Because at the end of the day, nobody else will do it for you.